Hello everyone, and welcome back to this new video where we are introducing a couple new members to the SQL library. In this one I'm gonna basically focus on the SQL Forward. As in the previous video we watched how we were able to store our data when our connection was lost to our SQL server from our PLC. So if you didn't watch that video, I will highly encourage you to watch that first, so you can follow with us with this second video to see how now we are going to restore our data back to our database. So this is where we left in our previous video. So we can see that the store is full and our data is backed up. We already checked that in our SD card. One other thing we want to look at, so if we look here at our data, so we have 292. I'm just going to query this again, 292, and if I look here at the time, it's 17:33:55. so that was the when we lost, I guess, the communication to our server. So now what I'm going to do is, just so I'm not inserting any new transaction or new queries, I'm just going to stop this inserts so it doesn't start to send some queries when I restore communication. But in real life you can leave that on, obviously. And if you notice, I have here two login routines. Well, the reason for that is so we can basically insert when our communication is back, and simultaneously we can store or restore our data back from our PLC or SD card back to our SQL server. And we have for that a second routine here for the login. So this is another, basically we're opening another highway to allow us to do the restoring of the data, and we can keep our inserting without any interruption to that process. We added this second login, and we can have multiple logins to allow us to have multiple connection to the same server or different servers. I covered that topic in great detail in some other previous videos in the channels that you can also watch. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just look at the SQL Forward. I will talk about this for a little bit before we give it the go. Okay, so in here, so this is our SQL Forward add-on instruction. It's it has the same look and feel like the other ones, except obviously the additional functionality that allow it to take the data from the SD card and then send it to the SQL server and so forth. So from a configuration standpoint, there isn't really a whole lot in there. So it's very similar. As you can see here, it only has this string, which is basically the query that we're going to forward. So that's really it in there. We have a couple commands for start stop, and then we have basically in here under the store and forward connection, we have like few statuses that we can monitor. And as you can see here, we can from here see what the store did. So here's 570 and 50 kilobyte, so they share the same data between the two. So that's why we're able to see that here as well. All right, so really all we need to do is essentially just give it the start command in here, as we can see. So one way to automate that's why I added this wrong in here. So I'm saying, hey, once the communication is back in here and the storage is full, I want you to start pushing that data back to the SQL server. So that's what this rung is going to initiate that, and then we are going to basically start our UI as well in here, as long as we have communication is established. So let's trigger that, and then we're going to see what's going to happen. So I triggered that, and then I'm going to push back my cable so we can restore our communication. So it's going to take a couple seconds here to, there we go, here's the communication restored. We can see here that the forward command has been received, and then what will happen next is basically, there we go, here's the forward active. So it's telling us that, yeah, I am starting to basically push data to the SQL server. And if we look at this here, we can see that this is happening already, and we can see that's the query that has been forwarded. There we go, it's 570, similar to what we stored, and we also forwarded 50 kilobytes. So it's as simple as that. So now, and it tells us it's done, so that stopped. Now if we go to our database and we query, so 292 plus basically 570. So what I would expect in here, as you know, the queries I should have in my table, is essentially 862. So if I do an execute here, and here it is, 862 queries exact. So now let's have a look at our data in here. So if we pass the 292, so right there, so we can see here 1733.55, 1734.08. So we have start recover our data from here. So that was like basically a couple seconds just by the time I unplug the cable, and why not. So this is start to basically store the data to that SD card, and now we have it back. So we don't have any gap between our data in here. So we can see here 8, 9, 10, 11, and so forth. Now another integrity check we can also do, just to make sure this is valid, is we are going to look at our SD card. So I just pulled it from the PLC, and we can confirm that by, if we look at our here, so it says it's not present, and I'm going to push it to my PC here. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to compare our data here. So I'm just going to push this to the side, and I'm going to grab our SD card right there. I don't need that. And let's look at our data here in our SD card versus what we are seeing here. So I'm just gonna, okay, so the first one here, as we can see, is 179672.7, and that's what we're seeing here, 0.67, so it's rounded to 0.7. The next one is 183.029, and that's what we're seeing here, 183.029, and then 184.697, and that's what we have here, and so forth. And then also for the timestamp, if we look at this one here, 1734.10, and then if we look at this one right there, it's 1734.10. And we can keep going, you know, all the way to the end to check, you know, all our data in here. So as we can see here, we restored our data from our SD card that we, you know, first buffered to that SD card when we have the connectivity issues, and now our data is back to our SQL server like nothing really happened. So up to here, like this is just basically we're just scratching the surface of the possibilities and what we can do with these two functions, the store and forward, depending on the scenarios. And there's lots of features also are in here that I will try to talk about in different videos, just to bring you more and more familiar and closer to the capabilities of these two new add-on instructions that has been now added to the SQL library.